Hello everybody, welcome to my 5th video of this channel. I've been doing it for a little over a month now. It is a lot harder than I expected it to be honest. I wasn't expecting the, weekly videos is tough in itself, but it is a bit of a grind in the off season when you don't have a whole lot of content to post weekly videos in like a room like this just talking about tree planting. I've had a few people ask me like, why would you start now then? Why not wait? Fair question, but I really just wanted to start now to kind of get a grip on how everything works. Before this, I've never recorded, I've never done video editing, I've never done anything like that. So I wanted to kind of get a little bit of an understanding because I have a lot of plans for when the season starts, and I really don't want to go into it not knowing how video editing works, not knowing how YouTube works, not knowing how any of that works. So I was just getting a jump start, a little head start on posting some stuff, and then also there's a lot to talk about before the season even begins. So I figured why not start now? But it has been a bit of a struggle for sure. So it's just tough not having footage. I've reached out to a lot of people and they sent me a lot of things, but I just don't have a lot of content or a lot of videos that I can show of the kind of stuff that I want to show. So that's probably been the toughest part, is that I talk about something with trees and then I just really want to show you what I'm talking about, what I mean, but I can't. So today I'm actually going to do it a little bit differently. I kind of changed up the camera setup. I'm doing a way more laid back, nonchalant video this week. I honestly just want to talk about trees. I just want to talk about tree planting. For anybody who knows me, anyone who's planted with me the last like 2 years, you'll know that I'm kind of fucking insane when it comes to tree planting. I'm a lot more intense than a lot of people. I'm not like intense in an asshole kind of way, but I definitely just approach the job differently than most other people. And I kind of want to just talk about that, like why am I like that? What goes through my brain? What goes through my mind when I'm fucking planting trees? Or what's going on in my head. So I just figured I would have a nice chill back. I don't really have anything. I've got my laptop here with a couple notes, some like talking points, but I'm just gonna go over I'm just gonna talk about my mindset, my head, and the way that I view tree planting, because I know that the way that I look at tree planting is way different than so many people. So on that note, welcome to the mind of midnight. I started tree planting for pretty much the same reason that like so many other people have planted. I wanted money and I wanted to escape. And I feel like the people who were rookies with me, we had a little bit of a unique experience on why we wanted to go tree planting, because I started in the second year of COVID. So in and out of lockdowns, in and out of jobs, I was back living at home. I had like no money and I just wanted to get away and do something that was going to make me some money. Ideally, I wanted to get away, but it was a bit of a perk if I was able to make money doing whatever it was that I was doing. But that just meant that my first season was a COVID year, which was tough. We were wearing masks at camp. I had to quarantine for 2 weeks before the season even started and do a log of everything that I was doing every day to let them know. We showed up to the pickup location and we had to do rapid fire tests. When we were at camp, we never went into town on a day off, which was tough. We never went in for supplies. We never had internet or service, except for on days off. They would drive us to the closest spot to camp that had service, which is usually just like the side of a highway. And that's how we would call our family. So it was a tough season. I'm going to dive completely into my rookie season a little bit later. Not in this video, but in another video, because my rookie season was pretty intense. And I was miserable probably 95% of the time. I have no fucking idea why I didn't quit. I look back on it now, and I think the only reason I did not quit is because I'm just not a quitter. I wasn't getting anything from it. For the longest time, I wasn't making any money. For most of the time, I wasn't making any money. I was way behind everybody else. It was a tough year. And when it finished, I was like no part of me wanted to go back. It was done. I finished the season and it was a breath of fresh air. I did try to go and plant in New Brunswick about a month later in a post plant. I lasted a week and I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? And I quit because I just didn't like the job. I wasn't, tree planting was a way to make money. I didn't make a whole lot in my rookie season because I wasn't that good. And I don't know why I went back for a second year. I think it was because my crew boss reached out and was just like, hey, most of the crew's coming back. So I was like, fuck it, I guess I'll go back too and we'll run it back as a crew together. With how much I hated it then, you kind of just fast forward 5 years and I'm now going into my 6th season as a planter. I feel like there's not a lot of people who plant as long as I do. People usually go in for a vet season for sure, sometimes a 3rd, but to go in for a 6, I only know a handful of people who are still doing it. And I think the reason that I have such a different view of tree planting is because I've been doing it for so long. I've been doing it this long because I have that goal of hitting 1 million trees. That's not a goal I had for the first couple of seasons. That came a little bit later. But because I've had that goal for so long, I haven't left the industry. I haven't moved up into a management position. I want to stay a planter until I plant those trees, until I hit my goal of 1 million. But I think because I have that goal and because of how long that's kept me with the bags on as a planter, that has given me so much extra time to look at the job differently, look at it way differently than I did in my rookie season or my vet season, even my 3rd season, and to develop all of these different strategies and techniques and just different ways of approaching the job. I feel like if I didn't have the goal of 1 million, I would no longer be planting trees. I probably would have stopped after my 3rd season, which was, a good season, but it really wasn't until my 4th or 5th that it was my 5th that I had a fucking great year, but I think it was my 4th season and what happened after that turned me into the planter that I am now. So if I would have quit when I wanted to, I wouldn't have got to this point. And, I'm just, all that time I spent figuring out how to be as efficient as possible as a tree planter. There's a good industry friend of mine. His name is Moose. Moose, I don't know how tech savvy you are, man, to be completely honest. I know you watch a lot of Netflix, but if you're watching this, I miss you, man. But there's this guy, Moose, right? He has been planting for well over a decade. In my vet season, my 2nd year, him and I were on a crew together. And this was a guy who had well over 1 million, well over a decade planting. He was like a god to me, man. This guy was just, I couldn't imagine the kind of things that he'd been through and done and how much I was struggling with the job. This guy was just doing it like it was nothing. I really looked up to him, but I was so nervous to talk to him. So I never really approached him to ask him his view of the job and what he was doing. But one day our crew boss put us in the same piece. And it was like a pizza shape piece, so we bagged up here together and then we kind of just veered off in a separate directions. It just looked like a slice of pizza. So we started off planting beside each other, but he went down the right side, I went down the left. So for the first little bit, we were able to see each other. And I remember watching him. This was about the time that I started really watching people who were planting a lot more than me. I was just looking at their pace and trying to figure out what were they doing that I wasn't, because at this point I was not planting a lot of trees. I was planting some really good trees, but I wasn't hitting a high number. And so I was watching him. And then this past fall, so 2025 fall, this was back in 2022, back in fall of 2025, him and I are planting together again. We're not on the same crew, but we're at the same camp in Nova Scotia. And we started talking about that day. And he was like, yeah, Midnight, I was watching you too. And he was like, I was watching you and it was weird. You were planting weird to me. He said, usually I see people slam trees in the ground and push themselves to try and plant a lot of trees. They get that competitive nature of planting. He was like, you were doing it a little bit differently. You were spending way more time on your trees, and he was like, I've never really seen that before. And then he's like, and then it clicked to me. And he told me, he said that I wasn't watching somebody try to slam. I was watching somebody try to perfect their craft so that once they figured it out, they would be unstoppable. And I was like, fuck, man, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. He figured out what I was actually doing years before I figured out what I was actually doing. I knew how to plant a good tree. I knew what I was doing. I had mastered planting a perfect quality tree. I'd gotten it down to, I was consistently planting 2,500 trees every single day, and they were all great trees. My crew boss would actually bring the quality inspectors to my piece as just to kind of show them, like, look what my crew's doing. My crew's got great quality, and he would bring them to mine. So that's what I became. And I was cool with that. It's called a quality mid-baller. So you're mid-balling, you're not a high baller. You're not planting 4,000 trees every day or mid-3,000s. You're planting 2,000 trees, and they're all incredible quality. So that's what I was doing. But I didn't want to be just that. I wasn't satisfied with being just that. That was only one part of the industry, getting the quality down pat. But I wanted to be in the conversations of people who were like highballing at camp. I didn't want to be the highballer, but if somebody finished their day and they're like, man, I wonder if I highballed the camp. I guess I got to figure out what Midnight Plant did. Like I wanted to not be the top dog, but I wanted to be in conversations with the people that were. Where before they thought they highballed the camp, they wanted to find out what I planted. I wanted to be in that conversation. I just kind of became like obsessed with figuring it out. Like I was, whatever I needed to do, whatever I needed to unlock in myself to hit the next level of being a tree planter, I was going to do that. It just became like an obsession of mine. I straight up just became obsessed with becoming a solid quality, a good quality highballer. Somebody who was, my crew boss could rely on to always plant good trees. But I was going to plant 4,000 minimum of those things a day. And I think it was the obsession that I had that's what changed my perspective of tree planting. Like I said earlier, if you've planted with me these last couple of seasons, especially if you planted with me out in Nova Scotia, I am a lot more hardcore when it comes to what happens during my day, how I plant. And I honestly think that's just because of how differently I view tree planting than majority of people. I've heard it said a lot. I've heard it said in kind of from like family as well, that tree planting is kind of a waste of time. I've read a lot of comments about how you're just wasting away your 20s. There's no transferable skills. You're wasting your time doing it. And yeah, like I kind of had similar thoughts to it, but every year I was like, I got nothing better to do. My first 3 seasons, I was like, it's easy money. Well, not that it's easy money, but it's good money to doing a job that I know how to do relatively well. And I just got the job. I don't have to apply, right? It's easy. I tell my crew boss, Chuck, I'm like, yo, I'm coming back. He's like, bet, you're on the crew. So it was just easy. I just kept going back. There is that point of view. There is that mindset that people have that the job is kind of a waste of time. In the long run, it's a waste of time. But that's just not how I looked at it, like in my 4th season and after my 4th season, I started looking at it as a lot more than just mindlessly taking 2 steps planting a tree, taking 2 steps planting a tree. I know I always say that, 2 steps tree in my video. That's just the best piece of advice I got in my rookie season from somebody. And honestly, eventually, I feel like I kind of figured it out. I treated the act of planting a single tree as something more than what most people view it as, right? I was looking at every element of being a tree planter, everything that went into putting a tree in the ground, and I started breaking everything down, where I started viewing the act of planting one single tree as an equation. I started questioning, were there different methods of bagging up, of simply putting the trees back in my bag at the cache that were more efficient than others? Were there advantages to bagging up this way versus that way? I realized that time management was the number one key to being a highballer. It wasn't land management, it wasn't my pace, it wasn't my strength and conditioning, it was none of that. And a lot of people will disagree, this is just from my perspective, but I started looking at as time management being the number one thing that I could do. And one of the biggest things that I do that I don't think anybody else does. This is the key, all right? And I'll probably dive into this a lot more in future videos or just later on. This is the key, right? Let's say you're planting for 9 hours a day. You have a 9-hour work day, right? Hey, tomorrow I'm going to work. I'm going to wake up at 7, get on the bus at whatever. Wake up at 6, get on the bus at 7, start working at 8. I'm going to go till 4, going to go till 5, maybe 6. So let's just say it's a 9-hour work day, right? I started looking at it as differently, where I wasn't looking at it as a 9-hour day. It was, well, here, I'm going to break out my calculator to explain this. So 9 hours, that is 540 minutes. How many seconds is that? That's 32,400 seconds. Let's say that it takes you planted a pace of 10 seconds a tree. So let's just divide that by 10. If you have 10-second trees Now I know there's breaks in the day, you're bagging up, you're not spending every 10 seconds planting a tree in a 9-hour day because you have to bag up. But let's just, for the sake of this argument, we're not going to talk about that. In 9 hours of planting, if you don't take breaks and every 10 seconds you get a tree in the ground, you are planting 3,240 trees. So that is 3,240 instances of 10 seconds. So I stopped looking at it as a 9-hour workday. I just had a whole fuck ton of 10-second workdays, one after another, right? I would plant a tree and then my day would reset until I planted the next tree. Everything that happened in that 10 seconds, I broke down, and how could I do each of these things more efficiently? What could I get rid of? What could I, do? What could I do differently to just completely maximize my efficiency? And all of these different things that I did, all of these different, changes in my mindset and the way that I planted, it worked, right? In my 5th season, the season that I finished back in the end of summer 2025, I averaged 4,200 trees every day for nearly a 60 planting day season. So 4,200 trees, that's including a fuck ton of short days, wrap days, a lot of stuff, right? So there were some days I planted 500 trees, and I included that in my average. And the next highest planter at camp planted about 45,000 trees less than I did. That was my brother. And next to him, he was about 25,000 trees ahead of the third person in the fucking standings of who planted the most at camp. So aside from him, I did average. I averaged over 1,000 trees more than everybody else at camp. And the thing about that, the crazy thing is that I did not ball the camp every single day, right? There were probably just as many days that I got balled where somebody else planted the most that day versus the amount of times that I planted the most. But I was the most consistent planter, right? Every day I was giving you the same amount of numbers. I wasn't going hard one day and then completely collapsing the next day and barely planting anything. Every day I was giving you the same thing. Tree planting just became like an extreme sport to me, the way that I looked at it. There's so many planters, and this was definitely me in my rookie season and even my second and third season. There's a lot of people who spend a day planting, but they're really just waiting for the day to end. They're out there, they're doing the motions, they're planting their trees, and they're planting a number that they're satisfied with. They're making money that they're happy with, but they're not really pushing themselves. They're just out there planting trees, and they're not putting effort, or they're not realizing that they should put effort or that they can put effort into finding different ways of doing the job to make it easier for them and make them plant even more. There's different levels to it. Like, I don't know, let's look at it like pool, right? I'm thinking of pool right now because my brothers are in a tournament this weekend. But I know how to play pool. I can go play pool, no problem. I go all the time with my brothers when I'm back home visiting. And I know how to get the hole in the ball. What? The ball? Holy fuck. I know how to get the ball in the hole. I know how to hit the ball. I know how to do all of that, right? To me, I understand how to play pool. I'm not good at it. But then you got, pro players, or let's even look at my brothers, where they see the angles. They understand that if they hit the ball like this is what's going to happen. And they understand the jump shot and the bank shot. They see things that I do not see. We are playing the same fucking game. We are doing the same thing, right? We are both holding a pool cue. We are hitting the same balls on the same table, trying to ultimately do the same thing. But they have it figured out way more than I do. And they're obviously doing a lot better than I am, right? I mean, let's look at, it's the same thing with almost every hobby and every sport, right? Like I was just saying, it's like an extreme sport. So let's look at other examples. You've got people that ski. You've got people that love skiing. And then you've got Olympic skiers. You've got people that play basketball. I love to go and play basketball with my brothers when I'm back home visiting. But then you've got, like the MVP of the NBA. You've got people that do it for a living. You've got people that like to play video games. Let's say somebody who likes to play League of Legends. Well, then you've got somebody who's making millions of dollars doing the same thing just because they're really good at it and they compete in tournaments, right? I just started questioning, like, could this same concept be applied to tree planting? Could there be people who just go out and plant trees, and then at the same time there were people that just had it figured out the way that like pro pool players got pool figured out, right? When I go play pool, I know what I'm doing. People that go plant trees, they know what they're doing. They know how to do it. They know how to do the job. But was there a world, or was there different things that I could look at and different things that I could think of that would make the job easier, and different things that I could just master to make tree planting just that much easier, that much, more fruitful for me, I guess. Like everybody can play a sport, right? Everybody can plant trees. Anyone could go and do that job. But was there a way to get it to a professional level, right? The way that I looked at it was there a way to be a professional tree planter, where professional tree planter, not in the term that I do it every summer or I do it every spring, or I spend half the year doing it, but professional in the way where I viewed it professionally, where I looked at every part of the job and tried to, maximize my production and be the best possible planter that I could be. My first few seasons, I wasn't thinking that way. I was doing the motions like everybody else. I was showing up and I was planting, and I was, taking 2 steps, putting a tree in the ground. Rain day, was I getting poured on? Was I battling heat exhaustion? 2 steps tree. The bugs, were they driving me nuts? 2 steps tree. Was I tired? 2 steps tree. I was going out there and I was planting trees, and I was doing it every single day. I was a reliable planter. I was always going to give my crew boss, like the same amount of trees. They were all going to be borderline perfect. And I was pretty much every day I was in a good mood. After my rookie season, I, developed some strategies to stay happy during the day, and it worked. And then, my quality was so good that the clients that we work with would actually use my trees and use me as an example when they were training their summer staff as quality inspectors. So I would be in my piece at the beginning of a season, and one of the summer students would come up who was inspecting the trees, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're Midnight. We've heard about you. We've heard all about you." I felt like a celebrity. It was kind of insane, where I could have retired as a tree planter at that point and been probably remembered as one of the best quality mid-ballers. And yeah, I got a fucking ego. I feel like I was one of the best quality mid-ballers that the company had ever seen. I can't say that the country had ever seen, because I don't fucking know who else is out there planting. There's probably a ton of people who are planting trees like me, but I was definitely one of the best. But I just wanted more. I wanted to become the best possible version of myself as a planter. So I started looking at everything differently. The last couple of weeks, I've really been looking back on the last 5 years. I feel like I'm doing that because of the season I'm going into. I know I mentioned it earlier, but this is the season I hit $1 million. This is the goal that has sustained me through my whole planting career. Well, no, through like half of my planting career. And I'm going to hit it. So it's, and then moving on from that, I've got a bunch of different passion projects like this that I want to focus on. Helping vets who feel like they've plateaued in their production or in their career as a planter, but they don't want to stop doing it. Helping people who are just starting kind of fast track their developments and showing people what it looks like. So I've been doing a lot of like self-reflection, I guess, and looking at each individual season of planting that I've been in and how it's kind of like led me to this moment, I guess. So I think what I want to do is I kind of want to do more videos like this, where I'm just going to talk, I fucking ramble, and it's kind of hard for me to like connect everything that's going on in my head, but I do just like to talk about planting. So I feel like I'm going to talk about those seasons, especially my rookie season, and then my 4th and my 5th season, were for very different reasons, very pivotal. So I think I'm going to like expect videos like that, where I'm going to talk about what that looked like. But I just kind of wanted to get on here and just talk about trees. It's hard thinking of ideas and planning out ideas. I didn't want to just go with like the top 6 this or the top 8 that. I just wanted to sit down with like barely any notes and just talk about the way that I look at tree planting, the way that I view it. But anyways, thanks for listening to my rant, listening to me ramble. I'm gonna cut it off there. I have no idea how long this is gonna fucking be. So hopefully I didn't ramble on for 20 minutes. But anyways, thank you for watching. Love you as always. Look out for another video next week. I don't know. I think I might go back and do... I had somebody suggest something in a comment before. I think I might look into that. But yeah, I got like a month left until I'm planting trees. That's pretty fucking crazy. So anyways, thank you. Love you all. Don't forget, 2 steps tree, baby.